Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. This is the first in what I am calling the Gay Nerds Are Depressed review series, because for some reason, I have gotten so many queer speculative books, either sci-fi, fantasy, or some other kind of that ilk, that are all really heavy, like cults and dystopias. And what we're talking about today, space homophobes. So today I am reviewing The Orchid and the Lion by Gabriel Hargrave. This is a queer, I believe it is termed a space opera, although as a stickler for the genre, it doesn't have a lot of the travel aspect that you would expect out of a space opera. It's much more political, but I don't know what you would call that. Anyway, this is all about a femdom sex worker named Dorian who is being forced to train a new bratty sub named Laith because Laith decided that he wanted to be a sex worker, but didn't actually know anything about it. It's super gay. So much gay. Love it. So many different gender identities and sexualities, and it's pretty awesome. Laith is trans, and they make pretty good use of the super futuristic technology in reference to transitioning, but also there are other trans side characters that didn't medically transition and they're just living their best life. It's great. So in general, I really liked the setup of this space station and the ideas behind it, and the sheer variety of queer characters was awesome. I really liked that we had sex work being portrayed in a very positive way, but also the idea that it can be done unsafely and that it is the fault of the person running the brothel or doing it unsafely, rather than the fault of the actual institution itself. Now, this one, like I mentioned before, has space homophobes. So a big, I don't know if it was really secondary. The romance and the political stuff kind of sat side by side. The big threat here is that there is a politician on the Space Station Council who is what they call pro-purity. In this world, Earth has basically managed to re-outlaw homosexuality, not in literal terminology, but basically by passing so many laws that they kind of de facto outlawed, with the whole think of the children stance that rings painfully accurate to the modern world. Regardless, so they are basically fighting a political fight to maintain their own lifestyle, because this politician makes it very clear that she is going to go after the red light district first. And yes, they still refer to it as a red light district. And there's a lot of talk of the greater world. There's like a colony on Mars and another space station later on. And so you get the gist that it's bigger than just this space station, but the space station is also like huge, like entire neighborhoods on certain levels, and then entire business districts on other levels. Like it's basically a city. And I loved the world building of that aspect. The one thing that I was struggling with, however, when it came to the actual narrative was, and I'm going to sound a little bit like one of those uppity reviewers when I say this, it did a lot of telling, not showing. Now, obviously, you can't show everything. That would be a tedious book. Some things just need to be told. However, and this was really confusing to me, this book set up possible situations or events that could have showed things, then skips them in the narrative and tells you what happened. And that was really confusing to me. First off, and then the biggest two I can think of is early on, you have two big events that would have perfectly encapsulated the status quo and the threat to the status quo. Because you had a pop concert with the latest, greatest pop diva of this world. And I guess the characters don't really like pop, which, I mean, the whole anti-pop is kind of overplayed in my brain, but whatever. You could have shown that concert, and that concert would have been, here's the status quo. Here's the culture we have now. Here's the, gay fun we're all having. Here's what we want to protect. And then next, after the concert, there was a politician's funeral. And the pro-purity politician was giving a speech at the funeral, basically pretending to be one of the good guys. So that would have been the perfect way to show the threat to the status quo. Here's the good politician that has died. Here's the person being super fake that is threatening our way of life. Status quo, threat to it, would have been perfect. Both of those events were skipped. And you were just given this summary in the dialogue. That didn't make a lot of sense to me, but that happens again later on, where you have things like they're trying to find evidence that the pro-purity politician is bad news, and they find evidence, but they never like state the evidence exactly in the text. Someone else just summarizes, and it was like I wanted to see that, like, show me in descriptions and events and actions what's going on. But instead, the book had a lot of just characters flat out explaining things in dialogue instead, which is not necessarily the sign of a bad author. It's the sign of a new author, because dialogue explaining things is a lot easier than using events and actions and descriptions to show things. There was also some of that thing where it would describe something and then tell the reader why it had just described that. For example, later on, there's a ship, and you find out that the ship on the outside looks dingy and dented and whatever, but the inside is very nice. And then it spells out for you, that's because this ship, is probably smuggling people, that it needs, like, no, you could just let that description stand. But like I said, that's very beginning author stuff, and I don't know if this is the author's debut, but I do believe it is fairly early on in his career, if not the very first. So it makes a little bit of sense that way. But in general, I did like the world it was setting up. I just wish that it had been described a little bit less in dialogue and a little bit more in the world itself, if that makes sense. The actual pacing was slightly strange at places, because I don't know if it really managed to strike a complete even split between, okay, now we're going to focus on the romance, now we're going to focus on the political stuff. However, the political stuff was making me anxious, so that didn't really bother me that much. Like, oh, we've gone a long time focusing on just the relationship, cool. And the relationship is very, very nice. It is very angsty, very gay, queer, fun stuff. The third act breakup didn't strike truly believable to me. But I'm also a stickler for that, so maybe to someone else that would work better. I've just read so much romance that the third act breakup because of the thing is kind of whatever for me. But the two did have fantastic chemistry in and out of the bedroom. There's a lot of sex scenes in this, like a ton, like just like a lot. Like, I don't know how to explain to you a lot. This is one of those instances where if you are really into spicy books, you'll probably be fine. There's not a lot of knife or blood play or whatever. So if you just read a lot of baseline BDSM kink books, you should be fine. However, if most of what you read is more simple MF pairings in romance books where they only have like one or two sex scenes, you might be taken off guard. And I know it might annoy some people that I always give warnings for that kind of thing, but sex involves consent, including reading about it. So if you would like to read this book, be aware that there's a lot of things going on here, like fisting, choking, a lot of stuff. BDSM, obviously, like I said, we have a dom sub dynamic. We have consenting non-monogamy. Obviously, they're A, both sex workers, and B, there are some other relationship dynamics that go into it. And I liked the overall representation of that. The author is, I can't remember if he is trans masc or a trans man, but we do have Achillean trans masc vibes going on here, which I really liked that how much that came through. And also, I really liked the ending. So I'm a big believer that the ending makes or breaks the book. And in this one, the ending gets gigantic in a nice way. Well, not in a nice way. In an exciting way. Shit hits the fan, but it's really cool how fast things go and how big the stakes get. But like you're not gonna finish this book in a happy place. Which I guess is kind of the point. It very much is setting up the next book into the series. You had a nice little reveal of a thing that I enjoyed. I don't know that I was like too invested in the mystery that was revealed, but like I liked the reveal, so it was fine. Overall, well, yes, I did have some struggles with the writing style and the narrative structure. I did really like everything that was presented. I did really like the kind of mix of the future isn't the perfectly good utopia, but neither is it the perfectly horrible dystopia. Like there's a lot of the same issues we still have today with different technology on top of it. And I would be very interested to see where this one goes next. I gave it 4 stars, which means I would be open to reviewing the next in the series. I don't remember if it's already out, but I know I have at least seen the cover for it. So if it's not already out, then it's coming out soon. And I am intrigued to see where they go next after this one. I am technically still open to review requests, as I mentioned before. Kind of accepted too many again, but I'm not going to close this soon after opening. So we're just going to get through it. And if you would like to send a review request, you can check out that information down in the description below. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.